DCarsonCPA, MFC in the lines, where we talk about with the whiteboard some of the processes that we have that we think about in helping businesses. There's project process advisory lines that's making up the MFC lines. The MFC lines are broad lines of stakeholder support for individuals and families, for industry, for government, for the executive, legislative, judicial branch lines, for nonprofit, NGO, individual family households, and for SMEs. Collectively, these are the lines of people who are supported by financials, who have technology working with them, and who can benefit from advisory services based on the nature of specific projects they have that connect with needs they have. You look at the round 360 of the global economy, there's breakdowns to the global, national, state, and local, to the regional and the municipality levels, and these are all different configurations and variables that deal with the points where individuals meet with industry lines, where industry might support other industrial entities, may work with SMEs, may work with government, may work with nonprofits, NGOs, but net you've got a broad system. It's an around 360. The ultimate stakeholders are always individuals and families. These are the taxpayers that will support. To some degree, entities are taxed, and taxed entities do support a degree of taxation, but there's also a large part of individuals, and individuals are the ultimate ones that will not have the same level of mobility as an entity. An entity can choose to domicile here or somewhere else for tax purposes, and so you find that the stakeholder lines are really about individuals who are paying the tax bills and connect with the global economy. Their line up to the entity becomes about the shareholder lines of basically direct and indirect stockholders. Stockholders have direct line through the process of proxies and the different services that go on when they talk about corporate actions and what's going on up here. They also have indirect lines through governmental lines of regulation and oversight, ideally to find the correct balance of industry lines and growth and risk, because between the lines of growth and prudent risk management exist the opportunities in the economy. And what you want to do is find an optimized balance where there's a degree of risk management, controls, and compliance regulatory procedures optimally designed to support stakeholders' needs, but reasonably designed to allow that risk as a natural factor of business. So there are interactive right there policy lines that go above and beyond the direct lines of having to deal with debits, credits, financials, data lines, both financial, text, and character-driven lines, the process engineering of how data comes into a business and how from front to back it supports it, or how one industry might talk to one entity in the industry lines might talk to another one, perhaps an industry line broker-dealer talking to exchange, getting information back and forth, or an investment advisor working with research from another place. Those are all kind of process lines within entities, information lines, and there's many other points. Those are just examples that come to mind now. You look at the round 360 of the global economy. We're thinking about the lines where stakeholders connect with the entity lines. In those lines connect governance, that's entity level governance. There's government, which is the regulation and compliance lines. There's risk management, which is a prudent line to industry. It's a societal line with banks and stress testing and all that stuff in there. And then there's this critical need that we all are thinking about for the cost benefit, to make sure that the balance of what we're doing here is optimally weighted, that the benefits exceed the costs when we're working with the expense lines of putting in regs, risk management controls. Same thing in government. You want to make sure it's cost-benefit weighted, so that as we pass new legislation becomes enacted as bills and laws, and is ideally operated through the traditional way, through the executive branch department, department agency lines of rules, that those rules that come in are also somehow cost-benefit weighted. And so kind of that, it does happen a little bit currently. There are, at the local, state, and federal levels, and global levels, the bodies look at things, and there are certain specific groups, and we all know which ones they are, that go in there and they look to those lines, and that's helpful knowledge for improvements in that sector. The same line, it's also knowledge about duties and responsibility for industry. So part of our working with process, think about who are the stakeholders, how do we all connect in the economy, how does that map into the global economy and lines and trade, or the regional economy, or the state economy. It just kind of depends on the line of the business and what the challenge of the day is. Within those lines, you have you've basically got these lines that are about the financials and the value at risk. That's all important stuff to understand. What are the financials of these entities? What does it tell you about the value at risk? So how can you then build controls and work with risk assessment and risk management, including audit and control cycles and cybersecurity? Then you've got The workflows, that's about process engineering. How efficient are our workflows? Can we improve them? Are we meeting the goals? Are we missing the goals? If we're missing the goals, use the economic research, the legal, financial, technology, and community research to find out what we can do to strengthen that. And also we work with, in the global lines, we have global comparative research, and that helps out in some different ideas to help solve problems. We get into teamwork lines, the solutions, that's technology, so we're available for fintech innovation lines. The knowledge we have to flexibly navigate between stakeholder groups is knowledge that can definitely help on software design and development. We're not the programmers at that end, but we have enough of a bridge to that we can help to think creatively about how to get this data captured and ported to what it needs to be. As we look across the lines, we have different lines. We have asset classes, so those just significant lines of transactions would be financials, accounting, taxes, analysis, real estate being residential and commercial, healthcare, the health sector, health R&D, transport, how do we get things, shipping, inland shipping, how do we get things from here to there, air flight and transportation, then infrastructure, the way that we maintain the roads or the waterways, the energy lines, because you need fuel to run an economy, and the agriculture lines for resilient and diversified agriculture in the global economy, thinking about aquaculture to preserve the oceans, the estuaries, and the points where food comes from, and the agriculture, because you want to get the right balance. There's a lot of complexity in that, but it doesn't mean it's to be disregarded. It's all part of important thought about the economy and the global environment. You've got to get it right, because we'll only get one chance to be good stewards of resources. But then again, we also don't want to overreact. We want to have the right balance of maintaining diversification, maintaining the strengthy lines, but finding strengthful lines, but maintaining a cost-benefit constraint, which is critically necessary. It's a hard point. It's hard for people to map into that, and I guess there's a very hard line to financial rules, and there's some things we'd say where there's some other lines where it's going to go in one direction or the other, but my aggregate point in this model is this is to talk about the ideals of where you want to be. And if you think about the ideal, it's always easier to work stepwise to process improvement. And this is, DCarsonCPA MFC, Project Process and Advisory, is all about working with project management, change management on the process engineering lines, advisory, CFO controlling, managerial finance, cost accounting skills. And net, it's a solution. It's to work with the leadership lines for directors, for officers, for senior management, then to help in the management lines of being a good team member to management, helping management see the problems in financials, see the opportunities in financials, see the risk and see the growth. Staff training, because anything we've learned about these lines here, which typically are focused on growth, efficiency, and improvements, also deals with staff, communicating to staff, because you're not getting anywhere if staff doesn't understand what the goals and objectives are. So for internal and external lines, outreach to let people know you're a business, or you're a government service doing this, or you're a nonprofit supporting sports activities or whatever it is, or you're an NGO trying to work with global issues and how your research can change the world, or you're an SME just trying to make your way in a municipality and a regional economy. All valid points where financial skills and project process and advisory map in. And we have lots of different lines of lean strategy, working with financials, working with technology, and communications. Communications is that point to map to clients and vendors, to communicate to a team across the team in different departments where they might be siloed in an industry, and then to get that outreach going, because you can't get anything done. You can't get the cooperation between industry and government, or industry and the awareness of individuals that they can shop there, find a more convenient life, or whatever is being sold, find some good or service, whatever it may be. That doesn't happen without communication. So PR, communications, advertising, outreach, all critical parts. And for those acceptable lines, we're not required to work on review or audits, which a lot of times can work on managerial finance and other levels. We can talk about things and be able to communicate and help people work better, or to also look at the lines of needs on regulations and needs on compliance, and how communications and outreach can help people to be, for instance, individuals aware of investor protection, consumer protection, help industry be more aware of new and up-and-coming rules that are coming in, and maybe have more of the opportunity to reach back and have some comments into new and upcoming rules that might affect their business, or standards from the nonprofit standard setter of FASB and whatnot. And so there's lots of lines in here. The asset classes talk about the financials. I think I covered this, but just in case not, residential CRE, the health, the transport, infrastructure, energy, agriculture, and the global lines of all these people working together to produce value for stakeholders, but finding the right balance for industry in its role on growth, government in its role on providing regulatory structure, nonprofits to help people, and NGOs. I'm Dean Carson. This is a broad model. There's lots here, lots more in the lines of DCarsonCPA. We believe that strategic thinking, looking outside to the big picture, is very important. Zoom up and zoom down. When we meet you on services, we've got the line item details. This is just a broad map to talk about some of the points on the line. Thank you. And we hope you'll find your way to DCarsonCPA for support services.